Alright. What we're doing here is doing a tie rod end on a Chrysler. Just setting up, presetting, getting things ready here. We already loosened the lug nuts on the tire to take it off so that we can get the tie rod end off. Make sure you have the car supported properly. What we're doing right now is pulling the cotter pin and castle nut, which on this side the cotter pin has disintegrated from age and weather. Not too good. Yeah. Obviously part of it is stuck in the hole, so it'll have to be popped out, but it won't matter because that's the old one. So that's good. That came off without problems. Okay. Now, what you want to do is keep your castle nut on the very end of your stem so that you can pop your tie rod end out, loosen it, and then be able to turn the nut on the very end of the tie rod itself, this bigger nut behind on the tie rod end. Make sure you give her a little jolt so it's loose. Once that's loose, and you should be able to pop your tie rod. Give it a gentle wrap. Should be loose enough that you can pull it up out of the dampener.
See here, it's loose.
It's up and out, and without problems, you should be able to turn it by hand. Okay, sometimes not, depending upon how old or how worn it is. Be sure not to turn your whole rod, just the tie rod itself. Manually move your
strut assembly out of the way.
Yep. And then proceed to remove the tie rod end
by loosening it.
By loosening, as said before. It is turning. It takes a bit. As you can see, I'm having a little difficulty, not much, but it'll turn out. Once we get it out. there's not very much room to work with here on having it in with the wheel well. Slip joint pliers should remove this with ease, depending upon how old it is. That's a different story. Every vehicle is different. Every application is never the same. Whether you changed it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it is important to always check these, where you may not have the proper seating, and it will cause your steering to go out of whack.
And clunking noises, and money loss, and nightmares.
But you should be able, at some point, be able to turn it out with your hand, as I'm doing right now. And always make sure that you have on the very end of the new one, after pulling out the old one, which you'll see in a sec when I get this out. As you can see, it isn't seized because it has anti-seize grease on it, which helps getting it out. As you can see, the very end has anti-seize grease, which is very good because it makes it
easier to get out when you're replacing the tie rod ends.
And whatever's left on the old one, you can take it off and put the grease in the hole. I'm taking the old nut off to see how the old tie rod end looks, which is still decent, so I don't have to worry about using this one. But what you want to do is make sure you count the number of threads that the original was set at, and your replacement of how many years prior, and now the one that you're going to put in is set to the same specs. Otherwise you will not have the same steering or feel that you're used to. This is the old tie rod end, and now what we're going to do is put in the new one. So what we want to do now is compare notes before putting them together. Do a dry run fit. If it works out fine and you don't have no problem, then you're good to go. Mind you, this is Moogs, and this is 5 years ago, same Moog.
It's not the problem solver, it's the problem creator.
So now, if you're like I am, you can save what you need off of the old to bypass using the new. Not advised, but in certain applications you end up having to use the old. There's no problem with that, as long as it's
not advised,
same.
But you can use it.
And for this, it's just to grab the Zerk fitting. Gently put your Zerk fitting or grease fitting back in. Do not over tighten it to the point where you put it through the top of the cap for grease, or you'll ruin it and it'll leak. Now that it's snug to the cap on here, you'll be able to re-grease it when needed. Okay, now what we're going to proceed to do is
insert the new tie rod end
into the tie rod itself. As you can see, you should be able to hand tighten it all the way in, no problem. Bear in mind, as you're doing this, you're only going to go yay far with it because you're going to have to line it back up in the hole on the damper assembly with the strut.